So, some tips for those of you that are new to the Mi8. First of all, just do a hot start aircraft. Makes things a little bit easier, and if you inevitably crash the thing, as you will do when you're learning it, it's quick to restart. Mi8 left seat. What you need to be aware of, first of all, ECL levers in the upright position. You don't want to have them down there because you're going to lose RPMs on one of your engines. Okay, the RPMs of your engines will try to adjust to your flight situation automatically, but they should be in the... I don't have them 100% upright because I like to keep a little bit spare. You've got your radar altitude here, and you can adjust your beep when you get your warning. You've got your altimeter here, you've got your rotor RPMs here, engine RPMs here, blade angle here. That's a useful thing to sort of know where that is. Airspeed indicator, engine RPMs, vertical situation indicator, VSI, rate of climb, etc. This is kind of useful when you're doing hovering, but we'll leave it out for now. And then you've obviously got your heading indicator, you've got your slip indicator, and then here you have your HSI. It's pretty much mirrored in the right seat, except you don't have the blade angle indicator. Obviously your engine control levers are on the other side of the aircraft. You've got your fuel and your Doppler and other bits and pieces on there. And if you've got the navigation module fitted, it will be appearing here. I'm going to be flying from the left seat initially. Okay, so when we're all up and ready for takeoff, okay, what we want to be doing is we want to be very, very, very gently bringing in the power with the collective really slowly, and we want to be observing what the aircraft is doing as we're bringing on that. Okay, see, as we're getting a little bit, the nose lifting up a little bit there. Okay, so as we bring this in, you'll see that the aircraft has got a tendency to pivot left, so we need to be adjusting with a little bit of right rudder there. And again, I'm just bringing this in very, very slowly. You definitely need to have something mapped for your trim on the cyclic, and initially what we want to do is want to give it a little bit of right cyclic and just trim that, because as we bring in the collective, the aircraft has a tendency to sort of tip over to the left, so you have to kind of do your little fine adjustments, and then when you feel that you've got it more or less right, just trim it out. Doesn't matter if you're moving a little bit, it's going to be very difficult for you to keep it absolutely still when you first start out. And make a note of your blade angle there. So mine's around about 5, and I'm just about in a 5-foot hover. And that's going to be useful to you later. So just set it back down on the tarmac. This is not the ideal place for me to be taking off, but typically what we want to be able to do is not sort of just fly straight up in the air on the power of the engines, because that's a risky strategy if we lose engine power on takeoff. We're going to get back up into that 5-foot hover again, which is very easy now. I've just got it all trimmed out, and I'm just going to tip the nose in very, very slightly to get a little bit of forward momentum, and then I can just taxi. I'm really not doing very much here with the cyclic, Just a tiny little bit of pressure just to keep the aircraft flying level, and then I can pretty much control with very, very gentle input on the rudder. I've actually got a tiniest bit of right stick in here. I'm just going to trim that out now. Now, as you tip the nose in, I'm doing nothing at all with the collective here, nothing at all. Airspeed's going to start to increase and we get some vibration, which I can feel through my seat, because I've got a vibrating seat installed. Notice my airspeed starting to climb as I'm going through translational lift here, and once I hit about 150 knots I'm going to start to climb out, maintaining that 150 knots. I'll say 150 knots, 150 kph, because we're in kph. I've done nothing at all with the collective. I'm still on blade angle of about 5. And if we start to lose airspeed, we can just tip the nose in a bit more. And it's maintaining 150. And I'm levelling out. If I start to exceed 150 knots, I'm bringing back on the cyclic to maintain my rate of climb. And then once you've achieved your desired altitude, tip the nose back in. So you've got a 0 rate of climb. Trim that out and you'll see your airspeed now will start to climb. I'm doing nothing at all with the collective. Okay, and it should top out around about 200, just under 200 kph. And again, I've done pretty much nothing there with the collective since the hover. So obviously, if I want to control my airspeed, I want to increase my airspeed, I can increase my blade angle, and I'm going to adjust the pitch angle on the cyclic. So I'm bringing in the power on the collective, maintaining 0 rate of climb there. And I'm trimming out as I adjust, making sure that I'm using the rudder pedals to centre the ball in the middle of the HSI. Likewise, want to slow down, I'm going to reduce the amount of collective and adjust the pitch to maintain a 0 rate of climb, and you'll see that the airspeed will reduce. Turns, use the rudder pedals to centre the ball in the HSI and control your pitch to maintain your altitude. The higher your bank angle, the more you will have to adjust. Probably don't want to exceed 30 degrees. Okay, and we'll level it back out again. And obviously re-trimming the aircraft to maintain that heading and rate of climb, or straighten levels as you see fit. Right, I think I need to turn on my... There we go, I can see my instruments now. Beautiful time of day this. Okay, so what we're looking for is, first of all, an airspeed of around 150 kph, which is around 60 knots. So I'm reducing the collective, maintaining the straighten level until my airspeed reaches the desired airspeed. Just turning back towards the airfield now. And then use the collective to maintain that airspeed. About 140. Okay, so I'm maintaining that airspeed. I'm going to reduce the collective, and I want my rate of descent to be around about 200-250 meters per second. I'm probably a bit high, so I'm going to drop down a little bit more. So I'm on a good approach vector. So maintaining that airspeed. And then I'm going to reduce my rate of descent. And as I'm doing that, my airspeed is reducing. We pick a point on the runway that we're aiming for. Reducing my airspeed as I come in. Now as I approach 100 kph, I'm just going to bring the power in a little bit more. Any second now we should get some vibration through the helicopter as we fall through translational lift. Notice my rate of descent is remaining steady as my airspeed reduces. We want to just catch it now and just start to bring the power up, bringing that blade angle back up. There's 50 meters, and we're starting to get the vibration at around about 70 kph as I'm bringing in the power to make sure I don't descend too quickly at this point. Reducing my rate of descent, bringing in the power, bringing in right rudder to compensate for the torque of the engine. I'm effectively in a hover now. Just can keep bringing that power in. Just remember to trim as we're bringing it in, so you're not having to fight the stick. And as we bring it back down to the hover, 5-foot hover, you should see that our blade angle returns pretty much to what it was when we initially did the takeoff, around about 5. And at this point we can just use the rudder pedals to turn the aircraft and gently kiss the tarmac. I'm going to point back down the runway because I want to do another takeoff in a sec. There we go. So if we wanted to do a running takeoff, we are going to just give a little bit forward pressure on the cyclic and start to bring up the collective. Controlling the direction of the aircraft with the rudder pedals, and again we want to leave it sort of around about 5, maintaining that forward pressure, looking at our airspeed until we achieve about 50 knots, 50 kph, sorry, and then bring up the collective smoothly until the aircraft lifts off, and we should maintain runway heading, passing through translational lift as the vibrations pass, maintain that level of collective, and then we can climb out as we did before. Once we achieve 150 kph, we can then just maintain that and climb out, adjusting pitch to control our airspeed. There we go. Easy as that. Now, actually what we're going to do is we're going to do try and do a hover landing. Just pick a spot first. I'll pop it down on the back end of the airfield. So we can pretty much do what we did before in terms of reducing our airspeed to a hover, but the difference is going to be that we're going to get to a hover at a much higher altitude. This is obviously a lot riskier. This is kind of where people can come a bit unstuck. So the first thing we need to watch out for is when we drop our airspeed below that translational lift, and we then have to start bringing the power in. We need to anticipate that point and start bringing the power in before we need it. There we go. Get the vibrations coming in. I'm just feeding in the power, bringing in right rudder. We're pretty much at a hover there, so we can just like sit here and just continuing to feed in power just to make sure we're not losing altitude. And once I've kind of pretty much got it stable, I'll trim that out. So what we don't want to be doing is descending too fast. And the mistake that a lot of new pilots will make when they get to helicopters is they'll descend too fast and then they won't be able to slow the descent. So we really don't want to be doing more than, say, like 100, 200 meters per minute. And I'm just adjusting the collective to maintain that very, very gentle rate of descent. And you really just can't rush this. Be patient, because once you start to descend too quickly, your engines won't be able to keep up with the extra power needed to slow your descent. Your rotor speed will slow down and you'll just drop to the ground. And this is what a lot of people are saying, oh, I got into VRS. That's not VRS, you just got behind with the power, weren't keeping an eye on the VVI. And you can see we're coming down. I can control the aircraft Really easy with very, very small inputs on the rudder and the cyclic to keep it stable. I'm just keeping my eye on where I'm going to land. Slow and steady wins the race here. If you need to trim, I'm really not doing anything at all on the cyclic, I'm just maintaining position with rudders. Tiny movements on the collective. Again, I'm using the Virpil collective with the Black Hawk grip, and it took me a little while to transition to the collective. I was using the Warthog HOTAS throttles as my collective. So as we get close to the ground, I'm just reducing that rate of descent still further. There's my 50 meters warning. Keeping those movements tiny. And as we get close to the ground, we should start to see a little bit of ground effect coming in. Again, maintaining that very, very slow and steady rate of descent. When we get close to the ground, might be handy to focus on an object that's a little bit further away to maintain your position. And just let it sink to the ground. Trimming as you go. There you go, let it settle to the ground and collective off. So I hope you find that useful and not too dull and boring. It is practice, but as with most things with helicopters, take it nice and steady when you're coming in on the landings. Maintain those close eye on your vertical velocity indicator. Make sure you're not descending too quickly, and feeding the power on the collective before you need to. And that translational airspeed is around 40 knots or 70 kph. Hope you found that useful, and if you want more videos like this, just post in the comments.
Emergency fuel remaining. Emergency fuel remaining.